in conducting scientific research. Science is not so defined by what it investigates as by how it investigates. The scientific method attempts to study a particular event or phenomenon in an objective, systematic, and testable manner. The objectivity refers to the fact that if two or more persons independently study a particular event, both of them to a great extent. The objectivity refers to the fact that if two or more persons independently study a particular event or both of them to a great extent should arrive at the same conclusion. For instance, if you and your friend measure the length of a table using the same measuring device, it is likely that both of you would arrive at the same conclusion about its length. The second characteristic of scientific research is that it follows systematic procedure or steps of investigation. It includes the following steps. 1. Conceptualization of a particular problem. 2. Collection of data. 3. Drawing conclusions. And 4. Revising research conclusions and theory. We can see in the figure 2.1. Figure 2.1 is that what is this? Systematic. The steps in conducting scientific inquiry. First, especially in a systematic manner. First, conceptualizing a problem, that is, selecting a topic for study. 2. You have selected a topic, right? Now, for that you need some data related to that. In second step, you collecting the data, that is, you collect the data of participants, what are the methods to be used and tools required for that, and how you want to do the procedure, that is the procedure. We will all collect the data in the step 2. Now step 3, drawing conclusions using statistical methods. In step 2, you have taken the participants, you taken the specific method, you have chosen what tools to be used, and you have conducted the procedure, right? After conducting the procedure, you will get some results. Now from that results, you have to made some conclusions using the statistical methods. Now coming to the step 4, that is revising research conclusions, that is restating existing hypotheses or formulating revised or a new theory. After drawing conclusions from this, you will compare or you will review the old hypothesis or old existing hypothesis, and from that you will do the revised theory, or you will make a new theory from this, right? Then again the same procedure goes on. In revising research conclusions means you will do some literature review, and you related to the topic, is there any existing scientific data, you will compare with it, or if not there, you will formulate a new theory, right? Now let us discuss in brief about this conducting the scientific research in a systematic manner. Now let us discuss these steps in some detail. 1. conceptualizing a problem. The process of scientific research begins when a researcher selects a theme or topic for the study. Then she or he narrows down the focus and develops research questions or problems for the study. This is done on the basis of review of past research, observations, and personal experience. Note this point. This is done on basis of review of past research, observations, and personal experience. What you do? How the questions? How do you make? You make the research questions or problems for the study based on review of past research, observations, and personal experiences. For example, earlier you read that a researcher was interested in observing the study habits of students, right? This is the For example, earlier you read that a researcher was interested in observing the study habits of students. For this purpose, he or she may identify different facets of study habits first and then decide whether he or she is interested in study habits shown in the class or at home. In psychology, we study a diverse range of problems related to behavior and experiences. How experiences? For example, you get some experience while jumping from one place from a height with the help of parachute. What is your experience? Right, like this. Or what is your experience? When you are just fell down when the chair is being pulled from the back, right? What is the problems associated with the experiences or your behavior? What is the problem associated with particular behavior? These problems may be related to A. Understanding our own behavior. For example, how do I feel and behave when I am in a state of joy or grief? How do we reflect on our own experiences and behavior? Why do we forget? B. Understanding other individuals' behavior. For example, is Abhinav more intelligent than Ankur? Why is someone always not able to complete her or his work on time? Can the habit of smoking be controlled? Why do some people suffering from chronic illness not take medicines? C. Group influences on individual behavior. For example, why does Rahim spend more time meeting with people than doing his work? Why does a cyclist perform better when cycling before a group of persons than when cycling alone? D. Group behavior. For example, why does risk-taking behavior increase when people are in a group? And E. Organizational level. For example, why are some organizations more successful than others? How can an employer increase the motivation of employees? The list is long and you will learn about these various facets in subsequent chapters. If you are inquisitive, you can write down a number of problems which you may like to probe. If you are inquisitive, you can write down a number of problems which you may like to probe. After identification of the problem, the researcher proceeds by developing a tentative answer of the problem, which is called hypothesis. After identification, the researcher will formulate a hypothesis, means a tentative answer to that problem, right? It is imaginary, right? From the researcher point of view, this might may happen, right? After conducting that study, that hypothesis may or may not be true. For example, based on the earlier evidence or your observation, right? You might develop a hypothesis. Greater is the amount of time spent by children in viewing violence on television, higher is the degree of aggression displayed by them. In your research, you shall now try to prove whether the statement is true or false from our study, right? That means after that hypothesis is being done, you have to prove whether the statement given by you is true or false. You have given the statement based on your observations or review or previous review after reviewing previous articles or research conclusions. Now to collecting data. The second step in scientific research is to collect data. Data collection requires developing a research design or a blueprint of the entire study, right? It requires taking decisions about the following 4 aspects: A. Participants in the study. B. Methods of data collection. C. Tools to be used in research. D. Procedure for data collection. Depending upon the nature of the study, the researcher has to decide who would be the participants or informants in the study. The participants could be children, adolescents, college students, teachers, managers, clinical patients, industrial workers, or any group of individuals in whom or where the phenomenon under investigation is prevalent, that is common. The second decision is related to the use of methods of data collection, such as observation method, experimental method, correlational method, case study, etc. The second step is method of data collection. It can be through observation method, experimental method, correlational method, case study, etc. The researcher needs to decide about appropriate tools, for example, interview schedule, observation schedule, questionnaire, etc. What is appropriate tool to get that information? It may be an interview, or it may be observation, or it may be questionnaire. What would be appropriate to that? The interviewer has to decide for data collection, right? The researcher also decides about how the tools need to be administered to collect data, that is individual or a group. Now then, researcher needs to know where the tool has to be applied, whether to an individual or to a group. This is followed by actual collection of data. Now, collection of data includes these steps. First, you need to identify the participants. Second, you need to choose an appropriate method of data collection. 3. Then you have to what are the tools used to for data collection? You have to tell. And finally, how to use these tools you need to know, and on whom you need to know how to use these tools to get the data. You must know. Now coming to the third step, drawing conclusions. The next step is to analyze the data. You have collected the data. Now you have to analyze the data, means detailed examination of data so collected through the use of statistical procedures to understand what the data mean. This can be achieved through graphical representations such as preparation of pie chart, bar diagram, cumulative frequencies, etc. And by the use of different statistical methods. The purpose of analysis is to verify a hypothesis and draw conclusions accordingly, right? In drawing conclusions, what you do, you analyze the data so collected through the use of statistical procedures to understand what the data mean. These can be achieved through graphical representations such as preparation of pie chart, bar diagrams, cumulative frequencies, etc. and by the use of different statistical methods. The purpose of analysis is to verify, means cross-check a hypothesis and draw conclusions accordingly. And 4. Revising research conclusions. If your conclusion is right, then you will say the revised conclusion. The researcher may have begun the study with a hypothesis that there exists a relationship between viewing violence on television and aggression among children. He or she has to see whether the conclusions support this hypothesis. If they do, the existing hypothesis theory is confirmed. If not, he or she will revise or state an alternative hypothesis or theory and again test it based on new data and draw conclusions which may be verified by future researchers. Thus, research is a continuous process. If it is wrong, this data is being used by others, they will propose the alternative hypothesis. If exists, then you say the existing hypothesis or theory is confirmed. If not, he will revise or state an alternative hypothesis. Alternative hypothesis, right? After okay, after this hypothesis, again more generations come and they do the research, and they will judge and verify this hypothesis based on their research work. Thus, research is a continuous process. Alternative paradigms of research. Psychologists suggest that human behavior can and should be studied following the methods adopted by science like physics, chemistry, and biology. The key assumption of this view is that human behavior is predictable, right, as caused by internal and external forces, and can be observed, right? It can be observed and measured and controlled. In order to achieve these goals, the discipline of psychology for larger part of the 20th century restricted itself to the study of overt behavior, that is the behavior that could be observed and measured. It didn't focus on personal feelings, experiences, meanings, etc. Note this point. The discipline of psychology for larger part of the 20th century restricted itself to the study of overt behavior, that is the behavior that could be observed, measured. It didn't focus on personal feelings, experiences, meanings, etc. In recent years, a different method known as interpretive has emerged. It emphasizes understanding over explanation and prediction. Interpretive will emphasize understanding over explanation and prediction. It takes the stand that in view of complex and variable nature of human behavior and experience, its method of investigation should be different from the method of investigation of the physical world. This viewpoint emphasizes the importance of how human beings give meaning to events and actions and interpret them as they occur in a particular context. Let us take the experiences that may occur in some unique contexts, such as persons experiencing suffering due to external factors. For example, people affected by tsunami, earthquake, cyclone, or internal factors. For instance, prolonged illness, etc. In such types of situations, objective measurement is neither possible nor desirable. Everyone interprets reality in his or her own way, based on past experiences and contexts. Therefore, we need to understand the subjective interpretation, not objective interpretation here saying. Subjective interpretation of the reality. The goal here is to explore the different aspects of human experiences and behavior without attempting to disturb its natural flow. For example, an explorer does not know what he or she is looking for, how to look for it, and what to expect. Rather, he or she tries to map an uncharted wilderness with little or no prior knowledge of the area, and her or his main task is to record the detailed descriptions of what is found in a particular context. Both scientific and interpretive traditions are concerned with studying behaviors and experiences of others. What about our own personal experiences and behavior? As a student of psychology, you may ask yourself the question, why am I feeling sad? Many times you take a pledge that you will control your diet or devote more time to studies. But when it actually comes to eating or studying, you forget this. You might be wondering why one does not have control over one's behavior. Should psychology not help you in analyzing your own experiences, thought processes, and behavior? It certainly should. The psychological inquiry does aim at understanding the self by reflecting on one's own experiences and insights.